brightly.
Hello, and welcome to this eSchool News webinar, Navigating the Changing Workforce, Managing Technology Operations Across Generations and Skill Sets. My name is Chris Hobson, and I'll be moderating this event. I am the Custom Content Manager for eSchool News, and I am excited to have you join us for what should be a very informative session. Today's webinar is sponsored by Dude Solutions. Dude Solutions is a leading software as a service provider of operations management solutions to education, government, healthcare, senior living, manufacturing, and membership-based organizations. For nearly 2 decades, Dude Solutions has inspired clients to create better work and better lives. Dude Solutions combines innovative, user-friendly technology with the world's smartest operations engine, empowering operations leaders to transform the most important places in our lives. Before I introduce our presenters, I'd like to take a minute to go over some features of the platform that we're using for this webinar. Today's event will be recorded, so you don't have to worry about missing a thing. Within a few days, you'll receive an email message that contains a link to the recorded webinar along with a PDF of the slides. You can submit questions at any time during the presentation by clicking on the purple Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, then typing your question into the pop-up box and hitting submit. We'll save those questions for the Q&A session with our presenters scheduled for the end of the webinar. We also have a group chat function that you can launch by clicking on the blue chat button at the bottom of your screen. Feel free to use this feature to chat amongst yourselves or to contact someone from eSchool News if you have a technical question. But please don't use this feature to ask questions of our speakers. If you have a question for the speaker, you can use the Q&A box that I just mentioned. If you find that you're having a hard time reading the text on the slides, you can enlarge that portion of your screen by clicking on the box in the upper right-hand corner of the slide window. Or you can click on the double arrows for a full screen view of the slide presentation. Finally, we encourage you to join the back channel conversation on Twitter by referring to the Twitter handle @DudeSolutions and the hashtag ESNWebinar in your tweets. With these housekeeping items out of the way, let's get started with our presentation. Our presenters today are Joshua Tellerico, IT Implementation Specialist for Dude Solutions, and Karen McKenzie, Director of Technology and Innovation for the CARI Academy. Josh is responsible for assisting organizations in implementing IT product solutions as well as instructing online seminars that align with the IT industry best practices to increase operations efficiency. With over 20 years of experience both in and out of the classroom, Karen is an educator who specializes in the cultivation and implementation of innovative ideas. In her current role as Director of Technology and Innovation at CARI Academy, an independent school for grades 6 through 12 located in Cary, North Carolina, Karen is responsible for overseeing all aspects of technology on campus, from curriculum integration to infrastructure to research and development. At this time, I'm going to turn things over to Josh to begin the presentation.
Thank you, Chris. As Chris mentioned, my name is Joshua Tellerico. I'm an implementation specialist on the technology team here at Dude Solutions. I first want to say thank you to everybody for joining in today out of our busy schedules. Before we get started with today's webinar session, I do want to take a minute to also allow Karen to introduce herself.
Sure, thank you. So, hi, this is Karen McKenzie, and I'm so excited to be joining all of you today to talk about not only navigating help desk and other areas, but more specifically, just to be able to have conversations and hopefully answer some questions based on the experiences we've had so far.
Thank you, Karen. Again, thank you all for attending. We will dive deeper into today's presentation with the ultimate goal of going through all the organizational change and changes that you might see throughout, and also what tools and softwares and applications that can help you ultimately reach that level goal of success in your organization or environment. So before we get started, I want to go over today's agenda, so what we're going to talk about. First, we'll get started with organizational change and the different changes that could happen within your organization, which is a multitude of reasons. What can fall through the cracks? What can negatively come through and impact your environment or your organization? How do you protect yourself from that and different preventive measurements you can take? Navigating the changing workforce and why it's important. Change is not going anywhere. It's not going away. It's going to happen, and we have to brace ourselves for it in order to find that success. Once we talk about these objectives today, we will be closing out with a Q&A session. So as Chris mentioned, there is a Q&A portion for you to type in. We will also have, we'll be able to answer those questions and take over audio or over the phone for any questions that you do have. So please hang on afterwards. Again, we'll allow that time at the end to get any questions that you might have addressed my way or Karen's way. Go ahead and get started. We'll start with organizational change. We're going to start with a quote that I personally like. It's one of my favorites. There is nothing permanent except change. Again, change is inevitable. It's not going anywhere. It's something we're all going to see if we haven't already. I'm sure most of you attending this webinar today have already experienced change or will experience and should plan to experience change in the future. It's something that we have to accept and have a plan in place in order to find success. So what are some causes of organizational change, again, that we might have already seen or will and should prepare to see in the future? There's multiple generations existing in the same workforce. Everyone has those different generations, different way of thinking, different methods that we've all learned from our different experiences or our different educations. It can be seen as an extreme benefit to have that in the same room or the same building or even the same organization, to be able to hear everyone's different way of thinking and different ideas. You also can see change from retirement. As we progress through our careers, we all have the ultimate goal of retiring one day. So how are you prepared for your organization when someone retires? You might be losing someone who has been with the organization or company a long time, and you're going to miss that veteran presence. Maybe someone's going to get promotion. Again, we all have our eyes towards working our way up in our individual careers, finding that success for ourselves, and being promoted. Maybe there's new opportunities to expand our own personal careers and move above and beyond to something greater. Might run into performance issues. You never can know what you can expect from your team or what anyone's going through, and things just might not work out. So at the end of the day, when we're going through and we are running our day-to-day business, we have to have those plans in place to prepare for any of these changes that we might run into. Everyone is going to run into some type of change, whether it's listed here or not, and we have to be prepared for it. So I have a question that I want to open to Karen to ask her with her experience that she's had at Carey Academy and previous. And I want to ask, what's your experience in dealing with multiple generations working in the technology operations workforce?
Sure. Well, this is something that in this field is highly prevalent because we have technology that not only spans generations, but changes so often. So it really is important to kind of pay attention to who makes up your team and how to, as you said, deal with these multiple generational places. Different generations mean different needs. It's just a matter of fact. You have your seasoned employee. They're going to need appreciation, knowing that they are still valued, that they are still important to your team. If it's a changing of the guard that's coming up for them and they're moving on to retirement, again, the appreciation, but also how are we going to leverage them while they're here to gain their knowledge and their experience and pass that along. You also then have your mid-career, and those guys are kind of the toughest because, at least in my view, because those are the ones that you are trying to keep interested in the job and engaged and excited. And that's really where providing professional opportunities and having conversations with individuals to see what their needs are becomes very important. And then, of course, you have, the starting out group, the young guns. who, having formerly been one, think we know everything, and then it changes, and we'll just figure it out as we go. There's a time and a place, and more specifically, a similar need as with our seasoned employees, that there's an appreciation that's shown, because we can also very easily get into the, well, you've never been here, you don't know, so on and so forth. So having that balance and figuring out what the makeup of your team is and what your approach is going to be, not only for the different generation, but then remember, they're individuals within that generation, is really important, and something that I would highly recommend that people spend the time doing and getting to know their employees so that they can be the best advocate for them and have a successful team.
Thank you, Karen. I think we definitely can all relate to what you said, because at some point, or even now, we're a part of that generation. We're somewhere along that timetable, or we were in the past. And I think those are all great and valid points, and I appreciate you sharing.
Absolutely.
So next, what we will talk about is, what situation are you walking into? So when you start or you take over an organization and you're looking to build up the technology department, all of us are going to walk into something different from who is our successor, who are we taking the place of. And there's three possible scenarios. You can step into an absolute mess where everything is a disaster, nothing's in place, nothing's documented, there's no procedures or policies, and you kind of have to start the groundwork from the beginning. The second, you could inherit a pretty good situation where it's kind of 50-50. Things have been started, policies and procedures are in place, but there's definitely a lot of work that needs to be done. And then third, you could inherit the rare perfect situation, meaning you just are following the ultimate best possible scenario there is, and someone really had their ducks in a row in order to leave this process in your hand. It is, again, a very rare occurrence, especially with how busy everything is and having everything in line with newer technology, newer standards. And as we change, it's hard to keep everything perfect, but that is the ultimate goal. And some of us can get lucky to inherit that perfect situation. So first, what I want to talk about is if you step into the mess. You will face adversity and you will get resistance to change. When you come in and you're starting that groundwork, there's going to be people who do not like that change. Again, there's going to be that resistance. Nobody likes change because it's outside of their comfort zone. So you have to come in and you have to set that groundwork. You have to set the policies, the new procedures in place, and enforce that. There's no data or history to go off of, so you don't have any reasons to kind of back you up and give them the why or the data or the history for you to make those changes and make those calls to make that positive impact. You have little to no understanding of current processes. You have to come in, you have to learn everything new because there's nothing documented, there's no training processes in place, no one to pass that information to you. So you really have to start from the very beginning. And I might be speaking to some of you on today's webinar session where you walked into that situation where there's nothing. It takes a few months just to kind of learn where everything is, learn about everything, and kind of start to gather that data that you need in order to first establish your procedures and policies. What you have to be able to do is justify your needs to your team. That's what's most important. Again, they're going to have that resistance. They don't want to change. It's outside of our comfort zone. We've been doing this way for years. Why do we have to change now? You have to be able to tell them why. Show them the reasons that they're going to find the success, not only team success, but how they can reach their individual success by making these changes. Collaborate, communication, very important. It's teamwork, dream work. Not just yourself can find success. It has to be your entire team. Educate them. We all should have a way or method to continue our education. Coming with change, especially in the technology field, is forever changing, so we are forever learning. There's nothing, we are going to keep advancing. We're going to have to keep up with those times and educate not only ourselves, but pass off our knowledge and different tools that can be utilized to help them further their education. And we have to be able to do all of this while balancing the needs of your customers in daily operations. So while you are building all this and getting all the procedures and policies in place, working on the teamwork, you have to be able to still provide that legendary customer service to all of your end users and be able to succeed through daily operations and make sure you're meeting your day-to-day goals as well as future goals. The second scenario would be inherited a pretty good situation where you have that groundwork, but you're not to your ultimate goal yet. So you have data and history to go off of, which is a better situation because then you can analyze, you can take a look at what needs to be changed. You can provide a why to all of your team and give them the reasons to why you are able to make this change and why it needs to be made. Excited about and conditioned to change, obviously, you need to have that excitement, give that environment, build that culture. Have adopted technology. As I just mentioned, technology is forever changing, and we have to be able to change with it in order to find success. So as technology changes, we have to learn the new technologies and pass that knowledge off, and then follow industry best practices. As a leader, it's on you to put those best practices in place. Do your research, know what other industries are doing as far as your competitors, or maybe not even competitors, but other IT teams which are finding success, to have that research, to look outside of your circle and implement those ideas and those succession plans in your circle. And then the third option would be that perfect situation. It is rare, but it can happen. If you are the one that's starting the change now, maybe you're in the first step, maybe you're in the second step, you can get to that perfect situation, and then your successor could inherit this perfect situation that you could pass off. So by having all of these procedures and steps in place, not only are you setting yourself up for success, but you could be setting whoever is to follow you up for success as well. And just imagine how you would make their life a whole lot easier, especially knowing what you had to do to get to the point you're at. Which leads me to a question for Karen. And I want to ask, what was your situation like when you started with Carey Academy? So where were you on the scale that I just talked about?
So on the scale that you talked about, I was extremely fortunate. I'm not going to say I wasn't a 3, but I was definitely in a 2 where I inherited a pretty good situation. But I also have to say that my situation was also very unique, because you have to think about it. When you are, other things to consider when you're coming into a position is that is it a part of a new regime where there's a lot of changes going on, and what is the whole attitude of the environment in general? Was the previous person beloved or loathed, right? Because there's a lot of personal pieces in there. So you really have this relationship landmine to navigate. So for me, what was interesting was my predecessor is still here. And he reports to me now. So it's been, that first year was kind of really feeling out the scenario and seeing how that relationship would work. I've been very fortunate that he is incredible and he was beloved and absolutely still has a place and will continue to have a place here. But it was definitely a learning curve very early on in a quick start of, okay, this is kind of what my role is or why I was brought on, but I'm here really to promote all of the good work that you've done up to this point. And so that, for me, it kind of laid the basis. I think of myself as an advocate for my team in the outside community, how they see us, what we represent, our work ethic, but also an advocate for them as individuals. And I mentioned this earlier, that it depends on where this person is in their life. But if it's someone who's thinking about, you know what, I've always been a help desk tech, for instance, and I really am thinking about going into networking. Okay, well, how can I support you in that? What resources do we have? That, to me, is a big piece. So I was really fortunate coming to Carey that my predecessor had a great foundation in place, and it was time to kind of just make some tweaks so that we can do a better job not only communicating what we were to the rest of the community, but then also being a school environment, being able to better communicate what integration looks like and how that impacts our network and our daily operations. So I've been in other scenarios, not so lucky, but the best piece of advice I can give you is, regardless of scenario, just remember it is human nature for people to want to wait and see what the situation, how the situation pans out, rather, so that it's on you to start those relationships and building those relationships of trust, and that's where you come with a successful team.
Thank you for sharing, Karen. I completely agree, especially about building the culture, right, within your team, building that trust, and all to work together. And as I mentioned before, teamwork, dream work. It doesn't, you find that success together. Not one person can find that success by themselves. You all have to be together in it as a team.
Absolutely. And if you can convey early on that each team member is responsible in part for the success of that team and put the onus on each individual, you seem to get into a much more collaborative nature early on rather than waiting for something to happen.
Absolutely. You're exactly right. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Next, what I want to discuss is regardless of the scenario. And what I mean by that is regardless of the three scenarios that I just mentioned and Karen provided you with what she's been through, you have to be an agent of transformation. No matter what situation you take over, you have to be able to change. You have to be able to transform everything for the better. Because no matter what kind of situation you inherited, you are going to face change soon. Whether it be in a month, whether it be in 6 months or a year, it's coming. And you have to be able to be an agent of transformation to keep that success. And at the end of the day, we all want to achieve the same goals. We all want to do our work successfully. We all want to grow individually, reach our team goals, and help our clients or end users every day. It makes all of our jobs a lot easier if we are finding success or we have the right resources to utilize. It helps me, it helps your coworker, and it helps everyone involved, as well as the end users that you are assisting every day and keeping them happy and delivering those results that are desired. So what can fall through the cracks? What kind of negatives can come up to cause really, I don't want to say failures, but it can really negatively impact your environment from what you're building? With every instance of turnover, there is a cost and risk of loss. So as Karen was speaking, to make sure you keep and show the value and reward those individuals on your team and show how it's beneficial to them, why change is necessary for them in their personal growth and the benefits that they can see out of it individually. When you have turnover and you lose those individuals, they come with, there's different generations. It could be someone that's been with you for 20 years and you're losing that veteranship. It could be the young guns, so to speak, where they come in and they have a better understanding of technology or a higher level of education. There's different waves, different mindsets, regardless of age or where we're at. Everyone has their own generational type knowledge and skill set that we don't want to lose that can be a valuable piece to our team. So what are we at risk of losing? We're at risk of losing the experience. If they've been with us even for 6 months, they've had time to learn your process, they've been a contributor, and you don't want to lose them. Obviously, if they've been with you for years to come, or the years in the past, and they've been with you through the change, through the process, multiple changes from when you took over, that's valuable experience that you are losing, and it's also time that you're going to lose because you're going to have to invest in training someone else, catching them up to speed, and also finding the right personality and person to fit your culture. Institutional knowledge, losing that knowledge that they have already gained to this point. Employee engagement and productivity. As I mentioned, they've learned everything. They've learned your process. They've been a part of the team. And then money. When you lose an employee, time is money. So by you having to invest more time, you are, in result, going to lose money. So based off of the experience, to break down a little further, we've got the silver tsunami, which all of you might know that's in reference to the aging workforce, the baby boomers, so to speak, which is approaching the retirement age. This will continue until 2030, so we're really in that, then over the next 10 years, it's really affecting now and hitting. But over the next 10 years, we're going to see that, where we're going to be losing that veteran experience from those who have came in with the, so to speak, old school mindset, which can be very beneficial, especially in the leadership department. So talent might be walking out the door, and they will be the ones who truly understand how things work. So that's where it's important for you to not only prepare for that, but have a plan in place where you're not going to lose, where it's not going to hurt as bad, where you have training pieces in place, where you have individuals to succeed and follow their footsteps. Not to mention competition from private sector for those who aren't retiring. Maybe they're trying to steal your good talent or your good individuals. And taking care of them and showing them that you care and the benefits to working within your organization and setting them up for success will prevent that from happening. Cybersecurity Ventures predicts that there will be 3.5 million unfilled cybersecurity positions by 2021. That is huge. I know that most college students are, if they don't know what they want to go to school for, now they're just saying IT because I can pick anything in IT. That's what everything is now. And this is a good example of that. Jobs are going to continue to open up for IT, specifically security with all the hacking. And as a company and organization, you need to protect your most valuable asset and employee information. So with this information, all those job openings need to have a reason for them to want to stay with your organization and see the true benefit to that. Next is the institutional knowledge. There is so much institutional knowledge that lives in someone's head and isn't accurately documented. Excuse me. And we all go through this, right? We go through our busy day-to-day schedule. We do something. We think how we should document that. We should note it, make that process better. And we kind of just put it in the back of our mind, and then we're on to the next thing. We're multitasking. We forget. How do you know what you don't know? If I never write that down or I never act to make that change, how can I improve that process? Which leads to data. Performance, having a baseline understanding, having that information to analyze. See your history, the different projects that you've worked on in the past. Have your replacement plan. Resolution history. So all of that comes into effect with everything that we've talked about to be able to improve your process, but also to have those replacement plans for when people are walking out the door, whether it's for personal reasons, whether it's retirement, whether it's promotion, having that in place. And then technology and security infrastructure. It's important to have a network topology and asset location. I know several people who inherited, they walked in and they inherited, you walk into the server room, for an example, to give you a good illustration or image, and the cable room is everywhere. Like you've got cables to different switches, to different routers, they're jumbled up, it's not neatly organized. I mean, that can take you months to go through depending on how large your network is. It's really important to have that topology to easily look at and be able to identify where all my assets are, where they live, and it also helps your networking team, if you're not part of your network team, to easily identify and see where your assets are and be able to resolve issues when they occur as well. Asset location is going to help you not only identify where those assets are, but have an inventory of them, have a log file. Maybe there's loaners out there. Maybe devices are in repair. That's very important to document and have that data for your goals now and in the future. Which leads me to another question for Karen. What kind of institutional knowledge is most important to get from your employees, and how do you get it from them?
So, you touched upon so many of them already, Josh, but there are a couple other pieces that I think people need to kind of consider. Creating shared documentation, providing mentors, these are things we hear all the time, and they are absolutely pivotal pieces, right, to make sure that you have and can capture. One of the other things, though, that I find beneficial is the oral histories. And as, again, we're talking about those who are at senior level, who are thinking about retiring, moving on, having them almost, if you will, write their legacy so that they are able not only to share the accomplishments of what they've done, but the trials and tribulations as well. Those types of things are some of the more softer items that will just make a world of difference when you're in meetings and you're hearing about well, we used to, or we tried to, all of those. But it also gives perspective as to how the systems have ended to where they are now. So that to me is a big piece. The other part are the little ones, which is, you always want to make sure that you have all the contact information for every vendor possible that the school uses in our case, because there's always some, like you said, something somewhere that you didn't even know was installed because it was a dying breed from years before, and all of a sudden someone wants to use it. So having that is always great. But more importantly, know where all the hiding places are. I can't tell you how many times, whether it's here at Cary or someplace else, where someone will ask for something and it'll be a scenario of, oh, we used to have that, where is it? And it's in some teacher closet, in the third cabinet, in the second drawer, never to be seen or heard from again. And that's one of the pieces that goes to my final point of whatever processes you put in place, policies, written, not written, whatever, you want to have them in place regardless of the tech that is used, because we don't know how things are going to change so quickly. So as you'll hear me talk later, we have certain tools in place that we do rely heavily on, but we make sure that's not our only scenario, and that we have policies in place when items come in, how we're asset tagging, how we're doing all of these other closing tickets, whatever, but that regardless of the tech that we use to aid in doing that, we have a strong foundation of policy and procedures. So whether I'm the one who's moving on next or someone else, there is some sort of documentation and history. But that oral history part, especially if you're new, is a great utensil because it also helps build that team mentality even more and allows you to establish yourself as, again, an advocate for your employee and also someone who is not just coming in and looking at numbers or needing to get things done, but rather you are invested as an individual in their progress and success at your environment.
All great points, and thank you for sharing. So going off of what Karen just shared, I next want to talk about employee engagement and productivity, and this really kind of revolves around everything we've been talking about today, and Karen and sharing her experience in working with and how the team is important and the procedures that she has in place. And it's really the relationships that you have and the culture and what you build within your team. So staff to staff, right? So like I've mentioned several times, teamwork is dream work. And that's how you will find success within your organization, is making sure everyone is on the same page. You have a relationship. You all feel comfortable with each other enough to ask for help, to seek advice, to have those succession plans in place with each other. Students, so outside of your staff, making sure that you are delivering, whether it's students or vendors, anyone that you are assisting day to day, making sure that they're happy and that you're meeting their expectations. And not only meeting their expectations, but really being that overachiever to provide that great service to the students or vendors, whoever needs your help. And the perception, so a person in a previous role, or maybe the department in general, just being able to oversee from a management standpoint or as a leader, whether you're in a leader position or not, being able to understand and put yourself in someone else's shoes and take a look from the outside will help you make the necessary changes and make you have a more understanding of what everyone is going through and why certain changes or certain reasonings are valid. So, Karen, when dealing with situations like this in the past, how did you combat these challenges that you ran into?
Well, I think there's no way to overstate how much perception impacts a team, the trust between you and the rest of the community members, and just the overall mood and attitude from a day-to-day basis. Our role is so tough in the sense that we could do a million things right, but that one thing wrong will never, ever die. It's that thing we hear about time and time again. So what I tend to do is, aside from lead by example, I want my team members to not just remember that, hey, we are a customer service department and on and on, because we could talk about that for days, but more or less talk about how they are part of the bigger community as well and that they need to engage. And I can't tell you how many times people are shocked, especially new employees, when they come in and they see that I'm at lunch sitting with the teachers or anyone else and actually having conversations, and even more importantly, answering any questions that may come up on the fly, which I know is something that we hate to do, because for many of us, lunch may be that 30 minutes to an hour where it can be quiet. But I'll tell you what, it's been my experience over the years that I not only get a lot of work done during my lunchtime sitting at the table with colleagues and with students, but more so building that relationship and creating a customer service feel that it's not just me trying to help you be successful at your job, it's me as part of the Carey Academy community doing all of this as a whole. And whether that's showing up at a game or talking to kids in the hallway because you see the same kids over and over, helping out. I have team members, and I encourage my team members when there is a need for an extra chaperone on a trip or advisor or club advisor, if time allows in their day where we can reschedule or change their day-to-day a little bit, to do it. Because the more engaged you become in these environments, the more that we are going to have the relationships with those individuals, and it becomes very copacetic. You can't have one without the other. If you have someone in these environments who is, I am a paycheck person, I come in, I punch in, I do my work, and I punch out, then this will always only be the paycheck and the job, and you're not going to get the level that you'd hope in regards to customer service and engagement. And all of that is what feeds that perception. So by putting yourself out there and by engaging and becoming truly a part of a community, the perception, whether it's the worst thing on the worst day, doesn't seem to have as the lasting effect as it would if you were coming in, punching in, and punching out.
Thank you, Karen. Yeah, and I completely agree. I think, especially in IT, we kind of get stuck on, well, we keep to ourselves, right? So IT just deals or talks and communicates within each other. But that's why it is so important to have those relationships outside with the teachers, with the students, with the vendors, to let them feel comfortable, have that relationship. Because as a leader in IT, you're not only responsible for the IT department, you're responsible for Carey Academy success. And you're all working together to find that ultimate success, which should be everybody's goal. So building those relationships, letting them feel comfortable coming to the IT team, and being that technology team or any other team that you are within the organization, being able to all work together to establish the same goals, it would go a long way than you actually would think if you had those practices in place.
You know, I couldn't agree more, and I think the other piece that's real important there, and you mentioned this slightly, was, you know, when I'm talking with vendors or when I'm talking in other meetings, by putting myself out there and engaging with all the different members of the community, especially in the different departments, whether it's academic or non, when I'm talking to someone or I'm looking and evaluating software or hardware, I now know kind of what they go through in their job. So if I'm looking at something and I see that the user interface is a little clunky, I'm going to be like, you know what, this is great, but this is going to slow down the efficiency of this particular department. Or, you know what, hey, that's great, but that's not where the kids are going for this. Is there a way we could put it over here? Same thing when we're picking out our equipment. Is what, you know, I need it to be scalable, I need it to be secure, but I also want it to be something that my team knows as best as they can, or there are opportunities for them to learn as best they can and be comfortable with it, so that we can say, oh, you know what, this particular router lets me trace everything down to this particular port, and that's great for my middle school because I know the teachers are worried about X student in this group and blah, blah, blah. So putting yourself out there gives you a much greater perspective of what's going on your campus and helps you make the decisions and find the resources that would serve them best.
Yep, good points. That's the purpose of building those relationships, is to have a better understanding of how everyone operates, and it helps you do your job. Absolutely. All right. Well, moving on to the next topic is going to be dealing with money. And as I mentioned before, money is time. So it is more expensive to hire a new employee than to keep an existing one. There's a lot that go in with that. Separation costs, your recruitment, productivity, training, all that factors in and takes not only money, but your time. So being able to dedicate someone to recruit somebody, put that productivity in, learn your processes all over again for whoever they're replacing, the training that goes in it, not only just the training and time that it takes, but also the tools that you have to use or implement, or maybe the other resources. They need to shadow. They have to work under somebody who's been in that role before to pass off all the knowledge. So it definitely does take a lot of time and money to sacrifice to hire someone else, and that's why it is so important to retain our talent. Obviously, if you're growing and you have to hire more people, that's a benefit, and money worth spent. But when we have the capability to be able to try to retain our talent and prevent us from spending that extra time, spending that extra money, we definitely want to do whatever possible to prevent that from happening. Moving on to our next topic, now that we've talked about some of those risks, how can we protect ourselves from them? So how can we really have procedures and policies in place to prevent them? So some best practices goes with a lot of things we've already mentioned, and that's building a successful community and culture. So going through and building that culture that feels comfortable, that they feel like they can go to you for something. If you have questions, if you have a need, being on a not only work level, but a personal level, being able to relate to them, have that understanding of where they're coming from. Professional development, being able to go through, make sure that everyone has their opportunities and understand what their opportunities are to meet their short-term and long-term goals. Have a succession plan and the retention of talent, which we just talked about, and also having those technology and tools, meaning staying up to date with the latest and greatest technology and having the tools in place to not only succeed day to day, but also like training tools. So first, getting into the community and culture. You really want transparency and engagement. Got to be super engaged and have those communication skills and encourage the communication throughout. Having personal relationships with staff, vendors, and students is something we've just hit on, so won't dive too much more into that topic. I think we've grabbed a lot of great pieces that can be utilized and everyone can relate to, and why that is so important. The recognition of contribution. So I think this is a big one. I know that all of us get caught in our day-to-day lives. There is an expectation that we set, right, to meet our overall goals, whether they're daily goals, monthly, quarterly. But it's so important to make sure that you recognize and reward your employees, whether it's just a sticky note, whether it's encouraging them by giving them a couple nice words, a shout out in a team meeting, anything at all to help them know that they are appreciated and to help motivate not only them, but your team, because they see that everyone who is succeeding and meeting those goals is getting recognized. So it makes you want to work harder for that team and for that company to be rewarded and recognized. Facilitate buy-in. That is really important. Something I briefly mentioned earlier is explaining the why behind the changes you're making. If you just come in and say, hey, we're changing, this is what's happening, bye. Like, okay, it's hard to accept that, and it's hard to want to come out of my comfort zone and make those changes that you're trying to enforce if I don't know why or how it's going to benefit me or the team. So giving them that why is so important, so that way they know the reasons that we are making this change, so it can help them understand and how this can benefit the team and themselves. Professional development. Focus on developing management and individuals. So what that, finding that personal level of success we all want to develop that team culture, right, where we all help each other out. But everybody at some point is a little selfish. You want your own individual goals. You want the opportunity to be able to move up within that organization or within that company and have those professional development skills or trainings or resources available to them to further their education, to have the opportunity to move up. So what's important on your end is to be able to go through, help them learn new skills, and help make everyone's job easier, internally and externally. And what I mean by that is provide mentoring. You know, whether you're assigning someone or whether you or another leader is spending time with those individuals who have been with the company and who have earned and gotten that recognition and to that point, or third-party trainings and events. Maybe it's, you know, held at other universities, other colleges, other webinar sessions where you can let them enroll to further their education. It's also important and part of keeping everyone happy. Community culture and professional development both contribute directly towards success. So this all comes around your succession planning and the retention of the talent. So this essentially takes care of the problem itself, right? You have your bench strength, so to speak, the transfer of all that knowledge that we talked about. What IT professionals may not be telling you, they want. No matter what anyone tells you, anyone in IT wants the latest and greatest technology, and they want it to work how it's supposed to work. It's kind of common sense. It's the expected. No one's going to say it, but everyone wants that technology, especially in IT. And they expect it to work how they expect it to work. So having that technology in place, having that education and that career pathing in place for them to be able to learn and to continue to learn about technology, and also not just technology, but towards leadership goals, is really important within your organization. It helps you not only stay relevant, but it also helps with the time and flexibility to help everyone grow and improve. And as everyone is growing and improving, it's going to help your team overall. They now have more skills. They are now able to help in more places than one. They're more flexible. Achieving operational excellence isn't only about the people. You also have to have the tools in place to help you succeed. So yes, you want to keep your people happy. Yes, you want to explain to them why and provide all the resources possible. And in doing that, that is making sure that you have the tools, resources, applications, or softwares available to them at their fingertips to help make their day-to-day jobs easy. And this is IT service management. Whether it's incident management, meaning like your tickets for support or a help desk, having that flow and that organization for end users to be able to easily submit and identify a problem for you to go in and resolve that problem, and also have reporting benefits to it where you can run reports, run metrics, and gather that data. Process automation and management, being able to easily manage and oversee everything and have everything automated for you. I mean, half of it can be done, whether that's having certain features in that software, whether it's having things tracked automatically or reports being generated for you. Self-help capabilities, maybe have a knowledge base. Asset discovery and inventory, being able to keep track of your assets and easily be able to see the information on your assets without having to physically touch the asset. We at Dude Solutions offer two pieces of software under the technology management department. Help Desk, the IT ticketing system, and Insight, which is the asset management system. They are fully integrated together under the same roof and same platform that allows you to be able to keep track of your incidents and all of your IT tickets or problems that are coming from your vendors, students, or teachers, and help deliver the results to them in a timely manner. You also have reporting capabilities, things that can be automated for you. And then Insight is the inventory piece where you can have your inventory attached to the ticket, easily identify what the issue is and where that source or asset is. So what's in it for you? Gained efficiencies in using both products. Resolution times, they will shrink. Instead, I mean, if you're in a scenario where you are just using email or call, or people are just calling in, you know, that can become a jumbled mess. You could lose it. You don't have priorities set. You don't have everything nice, clean cut, ways for you to assign and dedicate work to your team. So having the resolution times nearly cut in half by having everything streamlined into one pretty application. Two-way communication, being able to communicate through an application to the end user who submitted the ticket. So not having to call them or send them an email or find them in the hallway. You're able to communicate directly through the product and keep everything documented. And then process automation, having things where you can have tickets automatically routed to a specific team, routed to a specific individual. Have email to ticket maybe turned on where individuals can send an email and it automatically creates a ticket and logged in your system. All of these are very important towards efficiency in your environment and can really help you not only save time, but can also help your employees stay happy because they're able to have an application to do all of this for them, have everything streamlined. Things aren't, a headache or stressful having everything in your inbox or in, non-reportable, or you can't look at previous data, you can't look at your history to make those necessary changes that you might need to make in the near future. Ultimately, what will this help you accomplish is going to be helping you prepare for that change. So be able to retain that top talent that you have, keep them happy, make educated, data-driven decisions by being able to analyze all of your data, whether it's your tickets, who's completing them, when they're getting completed, or your inventory, and being able to quickly identify what that asset is, when it's been repaired, where's it loaned out to. This will manage and stretch time and budget more effectively. You can keep track of dollars spent per ticket, dollars spent per asset, and be able to quickly generate those reports and send them off to other teams and see where you can improve. Reduce the risk associated with audits. All of your history is logged, all the hours you spent working on tickets and IT problems, all of the time you spent working on assets, all that information is logged. The importance of navigating the changing workforce. Why does it matter now? Because it's all about building and leaving your legacy. Where we talked about those 3 different phases. Did you walk into a mess? Did you walk into a partial mess? Did you walk into a perfect situation? You want it to be when you leave, the person who follows your footsteps can walk into the perfect situation. Have everything documented. Have all your data in place. Have your tickets easily organized. Be able to quickly come in and already have all my inventory, have my processes, my procedures in place so I can start finding success right away. It makes everything easier, not just for you, but for your team. It helps elevate your personal brand. It retains your talent, and it will grow towards your organization's long-term vision. So whatever your organization's long-term goals are, this is ultimately going to help not only your IT staff, but everyone else involved stay happy, get their issues resolved quickly, be able to quickly access that data, and find that ultimate goal of higher-end success that we want to see the organization do. So a summary to what we've talked about today. The first step is required for any journey to begin, taking that first giant step forward to start change. Change is inevitable. Embrace it, accept it. It's never going away. It's always going to be here. Technology tools are more than a line item investment. It is so important to have a tool specifically for technology with how times are progressing and to stay on top of that, to have the enhancements on that technology, to be updated, to be with the times and get the latest and greatest technology to help you do that and do your job successfully. Have those tools to drive engagement, promote better communication, not where I just have to grab you, call you, or email you during your busy schedule. I can quickly communicate through an application. You can get back to me when you can, and everything's documented. I don't forget or lose anything.
Immediate change in perception.
Absolutely. Yep, perception. So to tell you a little bit about Dude Solutions, that we like to refer to as Dude Nation, to show you our background, we have served over 12,000 plus clients. We have millions of users, counting everyone that uses those applications. 20 years of operations data collected. 2 billion energy consumption tracked. 11 million events held, and 2 million IT helped tickets. All of this shows our integrity and our experience that we have in delivering and helping you succeed. We have 50 million work orders, 1 million buildings, 10 billion CSS in space. We have over 600 employees delivering that legendary success in any way we can with a 97% client satisfaction rate. And we are here to help you succeed a better tomorrow. Again, the technology products that I have been referring to throughout this training to help you with everything that I've hit on. Ways that can prepare you for change, help you collect your data, help your employees stay happy. Help Desk is the IT ticketing system. Insight is the asset management system. They are integrated. They do work hand in hand together to deliver those results for you. What's included? It is cloud-based. So it is unlimited amount of users on the web, and it provides automatic updates. We constantly provide updates within the product, and we constantly work to make the product better with enhancements. We never stop doing what we can to improve the application. Mobile. There is access information wherever you are. It is mobile capability. So whenever you need it, it's at your fingertips. You can use it on your tablet. You can use it on your smartphone. And you are supported. For the life of the product you are with Dude Solutions, we are going to provide professional services, interactive classes, and lifetime support. You are always a chat away, an email away, or a phone call away from getting any assistance that you need. And we will always provide additional trainings wherever needed. So all of you will now see a poll question. So I would like more information on, and you can select any that apply. So these are all the softwares that we provide and applications to help make a better tomorrow and help prepare you for change, to help you find success within your environment and within your team. So Dude Solutions Technology Management. Do you want to learn more about Dude Solutions Work and Asset Management, maybe Event Management, or Energy Management? Please select one or all that apply to you and click Submit. And I know, Karen, if you want to speak on, what's worked for you based off of these options and what you're currently using since you gave us your feedback.
Yeah. So, Career Academy, we have the technology management and event management. I want to speak specifically to technology management. This, for me, has been a game changer for us. Previous to this, it's the same thing. People would send a random email or put it in a ticket system, but it just got lost in the shuffle. And this is why I mentioned perception earlier. There is so much nice flexibility within the help desk, talking about when you're notifying the end user and when things are being updated. That is just been a huge change for us, which is great. We've also just gotten started with creating a knowledge base for internal support, which is fabulous. But getting the whole picture between the asset and the user and seeing the history of the user and the asset is, it just talks about saving time and money, and even more so, getting that institutional history about the equipment and the users. I talked earlier about oral histories and getting this information in regards to running your help desk or running your IT operations. This, having the right software and analysis tools within that software can make a huge difference in how you leverage those tools and how successful you are as a team.
Awesome. Chris, if you want to open now for a Q&A session for anyone that has questions.
Thank you, Josh. We have a few minutes here, so as a reminder, if you have a question for the speaker, use the Q&A box. And if we don't get to your question today, somebody from Dude Solutions will certainly get back to you. The very first question is, what are the challenges when working with millennial workers?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to laugh out loud. The biggest challenge that I've been finding working with millennial workers is the finding the balance in conveying that yes, they are important to the organization, but there's still things to be learned. And part of that is also how to be a good employee. right? What your expectations are. And I think that's the biggest thing. You know, setting the expectations with an employee early on and allowing them to know and understand what you define as success for them in that role is extremely important. There's, you know, like the saying goes, there's a time and a place for everything. I think for my experience for millennials at the moment is needing that instant recognition or validation is big. And you know, Josh mentioned earlier that giving credit where credit's due, you absolutely want to do that. And it's a little bit of a mindset change. But letting them be a part in some way has, I've noticed, has been a big advantage.
Thank you. Another question here is, do you have any tips on how to help your staff embrace change, such as new technology?
Oh boy, you know, you would like to think that those of us in technology are the most adaptable to change, but I can tell you that we can also be the most stubborn and curmudgeon in the group. I think part of my approach is, again, doing it from a personal approach of, and this isn't just for you here as part of this role, but how can I leverage this so that you are seeing value in this change, not only for the betterment of Carey Academy, but also for you as an individual. That's not to say that you're still going to have issues with, you know, certain individuals, because you are, and at some point you may need to have that hard conversation of saying, you know what, yeah, change, it's part of this, and as Josh said earlier, it's the one thing that's constant. At that point, I would approach it more in saying, look, I understand your feelings and your comfort level and lack thereof in some instances, but I need you to remember the perception piece, right? That you are representing our department, and I'm not saying you have to put rainbows and sunshine on everything, but try to keep a balanced approach and know who you're talking with in the audience and keeping that professional manner about you. The other part of it is you know, relate. I will sit there all the time and be like, okay, now, you know, you guys are going to have to tell me this about 5 times because I won't remember how to do this either, or, you know, show your vulnerability. Because then, again, it's creating that partnership and that collaborative effort of, hey, we can all get through this together. We just got to stick together as a team. But as the director or manager, there are going to be some times where you need to have that, hey, suck it up, we got to do it, and this is what we do.
Okay, thank you, Karen and Josh. Our time's about up, so I'm going to wrap things up here. If you submitted a question that we didn't get to in the Q&A portion, someone from Dude Solutions will follow up with you shortly. I'd like to thank our presenters today for a very informative presentation, and I'd like to thank all the audience members for joining us as well. As a reminder, you'll get an email within the next few days that contains a link to the recording along with the slides. Thanks again for participating, and have a wonderful day.